It's time for TWiG This Week in Google. Stacey Higginbotham's joined by Kevin Tofel. Jeff has the week off. We'll talk about Huawei. What is going on? Is the United States just trying to destroy the company, or is there really reason for concern? Google's internal civil war. We've got a lot of stuff in the changelog, including an improvement in Google Duo. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more coming up next on TWiG.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiG.
This is TWiG, This Week in Google, episode 509, recorded Wednesday, May 22nd, 2019. The Ocho. This Week in Google is brought to you by Capterra. Find the right tools to make an informed software decision for your business. Capterra is software selection simplified. Visit Capterra's free website at capterra.com/twig. And by Grammarly. Grammarly is a communication tool that helps people improve their writing to be mistake-free, clear, and effective. Start writing confidently by going to grammarly.com/twig and get 20% off a Grammarly premium account today. It's time for TWiG, This Week at Google, the show where we talk about the latest from the Googleverse, Facebook, Twitter, and all the rest. With us today, as mostly always, certainly always as often as we can get her, Stacey Higginbotham of StaceyOnIoT.com. This is IoT podcast, Giga Stacey. Final week in her temporary home before she makes the move coast to coast.
Third coast to west coast?
Do you call the Gulf the third coast?
That is what people in the Gulf call it. Although I'm not really on a coast. Austin's pretty landlocked.
It's true.
We're so landlocked, we have a river that we call a lake.
Yeah, that's right. It really amused me when I first saw the Austin Lake. I thought, wait a minute.
There are three of them. We've turned our single river, which is the Colorado River, but not that Colorado River, into three lakes.
It's a Colorado River. I may be joining you. You know, someday when we retire, we want to retire. We're thinking of retiring to Seattle.
Well, if you visit, I will have you over and
get to know the area. You know,
there you go.
You could be our welcome wagon.
Ta-da! I am welcoming.
We extend the welcome mat, the red carpet, to Kevin Tofel from AboutChromebooks.com, Stacey's comrade in arms for the IoT podcast, and an expert.
Now, just for now. I mean, if she's not going to call people from a plane. Yeah. I can't work with her.
This could be the show where we end the podcast. Dun, dun,
oh,
dun.
My God. Because a week from today, you're flying out to Seattle for the move. But does that mean you won't be able to do this show or his show? Or
our show we're recording earlier.
You're doing it early. Okay, good.
We are?
Kevin, we talked about this. And then this show is a maybe. Carson has me as a maybe.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
We like to get you whenever we can. So, Huawei.
Anything else to talk about, man?
There is, but this is
big,
a big one, and mostly because it's an evolving story. At one point, devolving might be a better term for it. You know, this has been going on since the Obama administration. I think it was 2012 or 2013 when the Commerce Department warned American companies about using equipment from Chinese companies, including Huawei, but also, as I remember, ZTE, which they've since basically put out of business with these kinds of accusations, and maybe Xiaomi. So as far back as 7 years, there have been people saying Huawei, we don't know who owns them. We know the guy who runs it is former Chinese military, former People's Liberation Army. Huawei says we're owned by our employees, our workers, but it's hard to prove that. And even if not, there's definitely the feeling that the Chinese government would have some sway on Huawei. So President Trump signed an executive order banning, which is kind of dramatic, Huawei gear. God, I have to get the timeline right because this seems like ages ago, but this was May 15th.
Yeah, I was like, it was so recent.
1 week ago. I forgot that he declared a national emergency in this executive order and said the United States, companies in the U.S. cannot use telecom services that are solely owned, controlled, or directed by a foreign adversary. I'm not sure who defines foreign adversary, but that began the ban on Huawei gear.
Well, and somebody has been whispering in Trump's ear for a while about national security, 5G, and the telco networks. So I don't, this isn't like totally surprising. The timing was kind of like, what just happened? And as we can see from all the stories on the rundown, the fallout is tremendous.
The dominoes fell, including Google saying, Reuters said Google's going to, I never saw a confirmation from Google, but Reuters said Google was going to withdraw Huawei's Android license, which suspending business with Huawei. So without Android, Huawei phones will have to run some other, they can run Android, it's open source, but they can't run Google apps. So they don't have the Google version of Android.
And they're go ahead.
I was just real quick. I was going to say when this news hit or was reported by Reuters, the first thing I did was go back to a website that my team worked on inside of Google. It's the Android Enterprise Recommended Devices list. There were about 240 Android devices on there, 24 of which at that time were Huawei. So I tweeted out, if this report pans out, or if you want to watch and see if it's going to pan out, watch this page. And sure enough, I went back today. Granted, we already know at this point that Google has said what it said, but all the Huawei devices are gone from that page.
That's confirming. They don't sell Huawei on the Google store. Microsoft pulled Huawei's laptops from the Microsoft store, but did not say anything about withdrawing the Windows license. That would be the kiss of death, I think, for Huawei laptops. ARM, according to the BBC, has told its staff to stop working with Huawei. Huawei's phones are running on ARM chips. Qualcomm says we won't sell you chips, so that means Huawei can neither buy chips from Qualcomm or make its own ARM chips, or
that's probably the bigger roadblock here. Yeah, Stacey, I was going to say you're the chip girl, but in my mind, without having an ARM architecture license, they can't make those Kirin chips
They can't make, a lot of their chips. They're using ARM-based chips in their telco gear. They're using it in some of their server stuff. They're using it in their smartphones. I mean, that is kiss of death stuff. And to say, okay, we're not working with you anymore means to develop your own architecture for silicon it's a process. So their option would be to try to license MIPS.
MIPS is the last company left because Intel and Broadcom both followed suit.
Right. And so
and Xilinx, by the way. So it's really, they've been isolated. Then, by the way, the story's not over. Then, Huawei was granted a temporary reprieve. And Google will resume patches.
Okay, well, that's patching. So that's basically anyone, because if you have bought Huawei-based phones and they're Android-based Huawei phones, if Google doesn't support patching for them, you're like,
Somebody told the government, if you cut all that off, that's bad for us.
Yeah. Don't you have a Huawei phone?
I had a P20. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to use it anymore. You know who has a Huawei phone and loves it is Paul Thurrott. I forgot to ask him about it because we were talking about this. I forgot to ask him what he plans to do with his Huawei phone. But the latest Huawei phones have Leica lenses. They have amazing cameras. They're really incredible phones, according to people who use them. I didn't like Huawei's flavor of Android. I can't remember the name of it, the Meow. I want to say the MUI. EMUI version of Android I did not like. But that was because I think mostly it was Chinese-centric. It really was. It was made for their market, not for our market.
See, this doesn't really hurt them in the U.S. because they don't really have business in the U.S. Obviously, it hurts them now globally.
They sell laptops here. They do sell a lot of laptops.
True,
here.
but I was going to say they also, under their Honor brand, sell some low and mid-range phones in the U.S. market, and a lot of people have those because you could get them unlocked on Amazon or direct from, I think it was consumer.huawei.com or something, and from the U.S. you could actually purchase them. So there's a crap ton of those Honor devices out there, which are a brand of Huawei. This also, not that it's a huge deal, but this also means we've gone from 2 foldables, down to 1, because now the Huawei Mate X.
They had
not happening.
A trifold.
Yep.
So the Department of Commerce yesterday announced a 90-day reprieve on an import ban against Huawei. It's the temporary general license on a limited basis. So partly that's to give telcos time to find alternative solutions. Partly it's to get updates for those Android devices.
I wonder if there was some sort of political thing happening here, because the declaration of a national emergency is weird. And for any country to ban something that is both embedded in the businesses of a lot of its own companies, this seems not well thought out.
What a shock.
I'm shocked.
I know,
yeah.
But it also seems like, I mean, it's basically like, go ahead and do this without thinking about the implications. So the fact that, I mean, a national emergency gives Trump powers to do this that he otherwise wouldn't have by like going through Congress for like trade agreements and that sort of thing. I'm not,
this feels a little xenophobic. It feels like a trade war, a shooting war has broken out over trade. Remember that Huawei's CFO, Meg Wanzhou, was arrested. She was arrested in Canada and is being held prior extradition to the U.S. because apparently she oversaw dummy corporations that Huawei used to sell against our sanctions to Iran. So that could be part of it. What has yet to happen, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, even though the U.S. Defense intelligence agencies have apparently briefed our allies and I don't know if they've briefed Congress, but we have yet to see any evidence of Huawei spying, either industrial espionage or cyber warfare against the U.S. But that's the presumption, or maybe it's proactive in case they do, but there's no evidence they've done it. They've done some shady things.
We have been looking for evidence for 7 years or more.
Yeah.
I mean,
they've done some shady business things, but they've been business practices, not espionage.
So my guess is, in all that investigation, they've either done nothing and nothing was found, or they've done a heck of a lot that's going to scare the bejesus out of people, and they don't want to tell us.
You can think of reasons why they wouldn't tell us. Besides that, you could think maybe revealing what they know would reveal sources, which you, of course, in spycraft, you don't want people to know how we know what we know. So maybe the intelligence agents are saying, well, we know, but we can't tell you why or how. You would think Google, Qualcomm, Intel, Microsoft, one of these companies would at least say something like, we have it on good authority, or we've seen evidence of malfeasance by Huawei. They haven't. They've actually said very little. Which makes me think they've been compelled to do this by some sort of national security letter type order that also orders secrecy, it's a gag order as well. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. I could see that happening because, yes, it's clearly disruptive to their businesses, not obviously as much as Huawei's, and they clearly are trying to, I mean, this is not something anyone wants to deal with. I mean, Huawei is not an insignificant supplier or participant in these markets. So
remember the last time this happened, it was ZTE, which essentially has been destroyed by this. $3 billion of market value was wiped out. I mean, and I liked ZTE phones, by the way. I was a real fan. They are the second largest telecom manufacturer in China, $17 billion in revenue in 2017. They were banned in the U.S. a year ago, May 2018, and pretty much tanked them.
And I'm curious what this means for like companies like Qualcomm have actually a lot of joint ventures in China because that's how you have to operate there. And I know Google doesn't, but Qualcomm does. I don't know about Broadcom, but so there are actually several very close-knit collaborations that companies have done in this space with China that I'm sure they're sitting there going, what do we do now? What does this mean?
Huawei itself is saying, they're very bullish. They're saying, we can handle this. We can make our own chips. We can make our own operating system. We've been planning this for months. We've been stockpiling parts from U.S. companies. We're not worried. We value our close relationships with our partners, they said, but recognize the pressure some of them are under as a result of politically motivated decisions. We're confident this regrettable situation can be resolved, and our priority remains to continue to deliver world-class technology and products to our customers around the world. I remember talking to Huawei's U.S. marketing representative at an event last Christmas. She was adamant that data did not get fed back from Huawei devices to China. She said, our data center for U.S. devices is in Germany.
But how do you prove a negative?
You can't prove a negative. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I would so I would throw out a couple things. One, building an operating system takes time. I don't know how long they've been working on it, but they have been working on it for a while. Building a chip and designing a chip from scratch is a 2 to 3 year plus you've got the new chip problem process, right? Look at what Intel did with its designing modems, for example. They do have RISC-V is an option. That is a chip architecture that's open sourced. It's a RISC-based architecture, just like ARM. And so you could see them design under that a new chip, but you still wouldn't expect to see it, for 2 years at least. Probably 3.
It's interesting because ARM is not a U.S. company. They
have a lot of
by a Japanese company, SoftBank. They're based. They were started in the UK. Its designs contain technology originated in the U.S. It was originally Apple was one of the big investors in ARM, but they sold their part a long time ago.
They have a lot of designers. A lot of design work happens here in the U.S. as well.
This is why this is so difficult. It isn't. There's not like everything in the U.S. The number one American-made car is a Honda. It's not. You can't. It isn't. These borders don't exist in many ways in business anymore.
There's no walls around the countries. Is that what you're trying to say?
You could build a wall.
Sorry,
it doesn't keep them out or in.
No, you're right. But here's a whole other thing, and not to get off the track of Google with this aspect. If this is a trade issue, and that's why we're being heavy-handed here, and we are being very heavy-handed. What about China? What does China do that says, "Hey, well, we manufacture all those iPhones here"?
That's the scary thing. The last thing you want to see is a hot trade war, because we are all of us interconnected, and anything unilateral from the U.S. could very easily be responded to by China in ways that would be scary for technology. And that's why this is really a story that resounds through all of technology.
China has been cool to our technology firms for a decade or more. Yeah. Which is why, everybody who goes over there does these weird joint ventures. Yeah. And
when you say cool, what do you mean?
They have laws in place to prevent U.S. companies from coming in and building, their own.
Yeah, you have to work with a Chinese company.
Right.
It has to be Foxconn building the iPhone, not Apple in China building the iPhone.
And they have enforced rules that have led U.S. companies to decide not to locate there or compromise in significant ways that, people at U.S. companies are not comfortable with. So there, is that cool to the tech companies, or just cool to our laissez-faire, free kind of democracy?
I would never. Well, okay. First of all, we have every right and a duty to protect ourselves. And if we feel like a Chinese company is going to harm us, we have the right to kick them out. I don't dispute that. I feel like they should at least give us some reason to believe that instead of just saying, trust us. And I am concerned about the reaction. And an escalating trade war is going to be problematic in a variety of ways.
Mm-hmm. You know, if it wasn't for the chip issue at this point, when I heard about this on Friday, I'm like, they're just going to pull in Amazon. They're going to use AOSP, Android open source, and
they could probably do that today, right? They've got Chinese stores already because you can't. Google wasn't able to sell stuff into China, right? Google doesn't sell them the Google.
They don't sell the services, correct? Yeah. But because they were a licensee of Google Android, they couldn't create by definition AOSP devices to compete. Now they can. Now they can. But not if you don't have chips to run it. So that was, to me, that was the nail in the coffin right there. Because I figured, they'll be fine. It's just going to be like an Android Fire OS type experience. So,
but I remember reading that they use a lot of U.S. parts in their phones. You know, admittedly, there's a huge trade deficit. Most of the trade is going the wrong way. But they do buy U.S. parts and put them in their phones. They won't be able to get those anymore. Mm-hmm. I presume. I mean, China can manufacture most things. I imagine they could figure out a way around that. But you're right. Without ARM, the Kirin chips are ARM-based. The chips that they use, Huawei uses, are ARM-based.
They're good chips, too.
Are they?
Yeah. That's the shit. They're good. I mean, ask Paul. I mean, the Kirin 980 and all the latest ones, fantastic. They're really done well. It's not just a straight, let's just use ARM's architecture and build a chip. They tweak things. They've got their own AI stuff. They got the DSP stuff. And they've done a fantastic job, especially in the imaging, the cameras. So,
yeah, they have an architecture license just like everybody else. So
I think the main thing to understand is it's not like there's a Chinese product and there's an American product. As somebody in the chat room just said, without Chinese parts, your F-150 is not getting out of the driveway. We are tightly interlinked at this point. We're tightly interdependent. I feel like if we're worried about espionage, if we're worried about cyber warfare, we need to address that directly. But I don't think saying, well, now we're going to draw a bright line and say these are U.S. products, these are Chinese products. I don't think you can do that anymore. I think that horse has left the barn years ago. Am I wrong?
No, but I don't know how well that our commander-in-chief maybe understands that. I'm also curious, why haven't we seen follow-up from our allies in Europe? Like,
they're just as confused as we are, apparently. Some, like the closest allies, like Canada, say, okay, we'll take Huawei gear out of our 5G network. Okay. Some are saying, well, what are you talking about? Australia says, well, no. So that's the problem. I don't understand.
Well, Australia is right next door to China. If I were Australia, I'd be like, we'll get back to you on that, U.S.
You'd think if we had evidence of spying and wrongdoing here that would be shared with some of our exactly, can be shared with those allies. So I'm kind of like when Leo, you started talking about the lack of evidence. I've been shaking my head ever since this all started 6-7 years ago. I'm like, okay, let's see it. Where is it? I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but we need to know.
Actually, I take it back. Australia did throw Huawei out. In fact, some say it was Australia that led the war against Huawei. So I apologize. I got that wrong. Who is it that's still using Huawei gear? I mean, it's
AT&T.
It changed. Yeah, right. Not anymore. Not anymore, right? Not anymore.
I'm sure they're working hard on that.
5G.
Not like, I mean, can you imagine if, you're telling AT&T to pull out, I don't know what % of their network gear is Huawei based, but it's not like they can just say, oh, as of Wednesday, we're shutting it all down. I mean, you'd have chaos because people's cellular connections would go down. Yeah. I mean, it's not.
Well, and then the other thing to remember is even though, we've given them 90 days, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the policy change because we seem to have kind of a zigzag foreign policy anyway. But the damage is done. It is now very clear that at the whim of the U.S. government, any company can be cut off. And maybe that makes you think, well, I'm going to make darn sure I'm not dependent on the U.S. government anymore.
Hey, Stacey, you may know this. I'm thinking this really hurts the phone aspect or the tablet aspect far more than the networking aspect because there are more network vendors to choose from, as opposed to this whole use ARM on Android or you're out.
Well, Nokia is one of the big network gear providers, and they're not as advanced at 5G. They're still having some challenges. So Huawei it's either number 1 or number 2. I can't remember. So you've got Ericsson, Huawei, and Nokia. And right now you only have Ericsson and Huawei with credible 5G solutions, is my understanding. And so it's great for Ericsson.
Yeah.
But yeah,
at least there's choices there, as opposed to Huawei's backed in a corner on the phone tablet side, the mobile device side.
Well, and the Verge interviewed a professor at Georgetown's School of Business, Charles Scuba, who said, if I'm a U.S. company, I look at this national emergency ban, it says I should be very careful to do business with any companies that have significant interlocking relationships with China. The chilling effect reaches very far. It throws up a big wall against inter-country operations. And that's the way the economy has been based for years.
Yeah, but this is exactly, this fits with the rhetoric and possibly the goals of this administration.
I think this is something President Trump said from the beginning of the campaign. Yeah. He said, China's an outlaw nation. They steal from us. And I think this was his goal from day one.
Do you think it's the trade imbalance that he's worried about, or it's the stealing of the IP, which has gone on for years?
Donald Trump really understands how tariffs work.
Sorry, never mind. What was I thinking?
No, he said things time and time again that show that he really doesn't understand how tariffs work and who pays tariffs, for instance.
Right.
But this goes way beyond tariffs, doesn't it? And maybe this is the goal. The problem is you can't just do that. You also have to create those. You have to build a 5G company in the United States. You have to replace what we're cutting off, or you completely disable the U.S.
Oh, and I should add, because someone in the chat room pointed this out, and they are correct, that Samsung is also doing 5G network equipment. I forgot about that.
Samsung is a player, yeah. Mm-hmm. And they're an ally. They're South Korean, so...
Mm-hmm.
But you probably shouldn't buy an iPhone because it's made in China. Get a good quality Samsung phone because it's made in South Korea. Just imagine if the next tweet from the president is, I don't trust these Apple iPhones. They're all made. You know where they're made?
I think he's already tweeted against Apple iPhones.
Oh, yeah, he wants him to, he's asked Tim Cook to move manufacture back to the U.S.,
Tim Apple, not Tim Cook.
I'm sorry, Tim Apple. But of course, that's really a non-starter anyway at this point. This is the kind of thing. I think it wouldn't be an unreasonable policy to have a national effort to build up these skills and these technologies, to create the manufacturing capability in the U.S., to say we want to bring these jobs back, but we also feel it's safer. So we're going to start this process because it's going to take 10 years. But 10 years from now, just as we did with foreign oil. Remember how great that worked? Oh, wait a minute. Never mind.
Foxconn is working on setting up factories in Malaysia and India.
Yeah.
India, yes.
Yeah. Well, they have to in India because they can't sell phones in India. Same thing with
Unless
Brazil.
They're made there.
They make iPhones in Brazil because Brazil has very strong tariffs against phones not made in Brazil. So we could build up that capability, but what we can't do is do it today or tomorrow.
Right.
We should just have everything made in Switzerland since it's neutral.
It's neutral. Who can you trust? Certainly, no one can trust stuff made in the U.S. We spied on Angela Merkel's phone, our German ally. It looks like the British phone company has dropped Huawei phones from its 5G network launch lineup. So this is spreading across the globe now. And it's what we don't know. Is this prompted by fear of the United States? Is it prompted by U.S. intelligence being shared with these countries and companies? We just don't know because it's not being shared with us. We don't know.
The real shame of it all is it took me 7 years to learn how to pronounce Huawei.
Now that you know, you don't need it. Actually,
I don't need to know.
There's been a lot of calls to pronounce it correctly. It's funny. Remember we used to say Huawei? What is it?
Huawei?
Huawei.
Yeah, if I were any American company working closely with China, I would start building more relationships with India right about now.
Yeah. But honestly, I don't know how long India can be trusted. The whole thing's a mess because you know what? Nationalism doesn't work anymore. It's a big, wide world out there. And many of the problems we face can only be addressed globally. Climate change can't be addressed by any one country. It's a global situation. So building walls, building up nationalism, closing borders is just putting your head in the sand. It's not a long-term solution to many of the problems we face. I think we are now, economically, we're a global economy. We know that. Mm-hmm. All right. I don't know. There's nothing more to say except that's what's happening. That's the news from Lake Wobegon.
That is, yeah.
Until the next one hits in 5 minutes with another headline on it.
Well, I have to say, it isn't boring. It is not boring. there's
May you live in interesting times.
Yeah, the worst Chinese curse. Yes, we do. Wow. Yeah, I just don't know what to think. We obviously have the right to protect ourselves against cyber warfare and espionage. And we should.
Yes. But if we're doing that and we have had these doubts for so long, we probably should have had better safeguards and channels in place to steer people away from Huawei equipment.
Right. And it takes time to do this. You can't just do it with a stroke of a pen or a Sharpie.
Well,
you can't just go.
Apparently, someone thinks they can and has done so.
It's almost like saying, "Oh, hey, Stacey, your house has termites. Good, let's burn it down."
Actually, if my house had termites, that would probably be the solution. Or bed bugs.
Bed bugs, burn it down. Definitely. Definitely. And burn the neighbor's house down, too, while you're at it. Burn the whole block down. Bed bugs.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate them.
I slept in a bed that had bed bugs.
You did? I've never encountered bed bugs in my life, but this
was in California. It was the Sheraton in Anaheim. And I woke up with bed bug bites. And I was like,
calling them out.
Should I? Well, I got bed bugs.
I understand that, but gee.
You don't want to take them with you. So what do you?
Well, so that was my thing. Do I burn my clothes? But I didn't want to burn all of my clothes. So, and I never put my suitcase on the bed. So I just was like, well, I'll just leave the t-shirt I slept in here and shower and run.
You'll run far away.
But so far.
No, you haven't. Was that recently?
Yeah, that was like 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
So.
All right, I'm crossing that hotel off the list.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm not trying to shame them, but as a public service, I feel that people need to know.
Did you leave a Yelp review?
No, I don't leave Yelp reviews.
Leave your clothes outside in a sealed black garbage bag for about a week in the sun, and that will kill.
Sounds like you know how to get rid of bed bugs, Karsten.
Man speaking from experience.
But I'm ready.
I'm stocking up on biohazard tape.
I'm a bed bug survivalist.
That's people worry about zombies. There are no zombies. There are bed bugs.
Yeah, no.
Why worry about zombies? I'm prepared for the zombie apocalypse. Well, good luck. It's not going to happen. But bed bugs, that happens. Bed bugs happen.
It's true. Well, I was feeling pretty relaxed. Pretty relaxed since I'm not actually in my home. I'm in a temporary home. So I was like, well, if I bring them with me, we're just going to leave everything here.
Burn it down.
To Seattle.
Burn it down. Did they teach bed bug remediation at Harvard? Was that a class?
Yes, that's okay. Well, you can only take it when you're
Yeah, second. Class. Yeah. You have to be an upperclassman to take that. Yeah. Our show today, we'll have more with Stacey and Kevin. There's got to be Chromebook news. There's got to be. I'm going to ask you.
I put it on there.
Get ready. Chromebook news coming up. But first, a word from Capterra. If you're in business, you know that software is critical to business. But I think a lot of businesses here are running software that's really old. And here's how you know. if you've got a machine, it's kind of old, kind of dusty, it's got a CRT monitor, it's running anything before Windows XP, it's got IE8 on it, Internet Explorer 8, you're using old software. That's not good. Stop. Go to Capterra.com to find the right software for your business. It is software selection simplified. Capterra has 700 categories of business software: CRM, IT project management, e-commerce, link management tools, web conferencing, just to name a few. We've been using Capterra ourselves. We had a sales system one of our employees wrote, not to name names, crashes a lot, requires I think it requires ActiveX. We realized finally Capterra, so we're going and we're going to get a modern CRM system. There you go. So how does it work? You go there, you can pick the category you want. I mean, even like yoga studio software, veterinary management, that kind of thing. Any business, pick the software you want, and then check the filter boxes you want based on product rating, number of users you can support, the deployment, whether it's on the hard drive or in the cloud, features, that kind of thing. You can compare up to 4 side by side. They'll show you a list of related categories for further options. And then, the best part, read the reviews. 875,000 vetted reviews from actual users on Capterra.com, and they get 1,000 new reviews every single day. So you know when you're looking at software, you're hearing from people who are actually using it, you're getting the inside scoop. I love that. No matter what kind of software your business needs, Capterra makes it easy to find the right program you need fast. If you got a program that high school kid wrote 10 years ago, now he's moved, you don't know where he is, it's time to go to Capterra. And by the way, once you find that program, leave a review after you use it for a while. Share your knowledge with other buyers. That's what's so cool about Capterra. Well, there's one more thing I didn't mention. All of this, free. Free. Free, not freemium, free. Capterra, Capterra, Capterra.com/twig. Millions of people have used Capterra to find the right tools for their businesses. We use it. You should use it. Simplify your software selection. It's complicated, but it doesn't have to be. Don't Google it. Don't call a radio show and say, hey, Leo, I need yoga studio management software. What do you recommend? No, go to Capterra.com/twig. Capterra.com/twig. Capterra is software selection simplified. Thank you, Capterra, for your support. Thank you, because we've been using you for doing a great job. Stacey, are you bringing your reformer, your Pilates machine with you? I hope you are.
I am. I brought my reformer, my elliptical, my weight bench, and all of my crazy weight things. So
you have a little gym.
I do have actually a substantial gym.
Nice. I take Pilates every day I can. I love Pilates. The yoga studio software made me think of that. My trainer said I should take hot yoga. Now I don't want to, though. That sounds...
They squeegee the floors after hot yoga. Squeegees
and they
are
probably
involved.
have to.
Yeah, that's gross.
Ooh. How hot is it? Like 100 degrees hot?
You can get it from like 85 to, I don't think people put it 100. That would be, but maybe they do. But 85 is hot.
I have to question my trainer because he says he feels nauseous the entire class. It's like, I should do this? This doesn't sound
you
good.
should not do that. It's not a, I mean, you can, but.
He says, you'll love it, Leo. You can wear short shorts. So that's not a good reason. That's not a good reason.
That's distressing for everyone else.
Everybody else has to suffer because I want to have ventilation.
So I would recommend. I'm going to.
I love Pilates. I am a huge
Pilates-ology is traditional. It's a subscription software, but you can have it on your phone. You can have it on your Roku. You can have it on your tablet. It's like $20 a month or like something. It's not crazy. And
online
it's classical Pilates.
It's Joseph Pilates original. Yeah. Nice.
But the trainers are really good, and it's a I have that in addition to everything else.
And it's not just mat Pilates. They use a reformer,
they've got reformer
right?
chairs. They even have the foot corrector, which I don't even know what that is.
I don't have a foot corrector. I do have a chair.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Oh, I love my chair. I was doing chair work today.
So let me give you guys another option real quick.
We're Pilates nerds.
That's okay. That's okay. And I don't know if they have Pilates, but that Peloton makes the treadmill and the bikes and all that.
I have a Peloton bike I love.
Okay. I do not, even though I love those pieces of equipment. But what I did about 2 months ago was I subscribed to Peloton Digital for like $19.50 a month.
Oh.
And they have the live classes that you can just do without
just do on a regular bike.
Exactly. I've actually been I have not used the yoga. My wife has. But the meditation, I've been doing the meditation bits with that. And
they have really expanded their offerings because they now have stretching and they have all sorts of stuff. That's really cool.
High intensity interval training, all kinds of stuff. So you don't need the Peloton equipment if you don't want to, drop $4,000 or more.
Yeah, because it's really expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, but you get the live stuff, you get the on-demand stuff. I have access to like 10,000 videos.
Wow.
And all the classes. It's fantastic.
We're healthy.
I don't know if they do Pilates though. I never look for it.
Healthy nerds.
Oh, Pilates is awesome, and it'll stretch you out and make you strong and
flexible balance. Also for old folks like me, that's important because we tend to teeter and totter.
You could just stop drinking the afternoon martini.
I think it could be the afternoon martini that's causing the tottering. It could be.
I don't believe in that. Oh.
Google's Civil War. I don't know. Do you credit this article from Fortune? I do like the illustration.
I like
Beth
Cowett. Oh, you know her. Okay. Some employees say Google's losing touch with its "Don't be evil" motto. Happens when you get too big. And, of course, we've seen...
They dropped that motto.
They dropped the model. Well, they sort of dropped the model.
Oh, it's like, wait a second.
Yeah. But I think they dropped it and brought it back. But how meaningful is that? I mean, it started, of course, with employee protests and walkouts and so forth. But it also could be that it's challenging as a company gets bigger to keep your vision thing going. You think?
Well, if your vision thing is predicated on technical genius above being like a nice human, which I think is a fairly common thing in the tech world, is like, hey, your tech skills or your whatever, your reporting skills, your value as a cog in the employment machine usurps your value or usurps the value of other people in that same machine sometimes.
Well, and when any company triples its workforce in 8 years, which is what Google has done, it's going to be very hard to maintain. You know, Apple has an Apple University with the sole purpose of inculcating Apple's DNA into new employees because they want continuity in Apple's beliefs. Kevin, you didn't work for Google, but you were inside Google, a contractor. Do they have anything like that?
So as a contractor, I went through some pretty, I'd say, basic training because it was only like 3 hours. And they were for day one people that are contractors. You could be a temp, a vendor, or a contractor, and you would go to this training. And it was more around protecting Google's information, being security conscious, what your NDA meant, what could happen if you broke the NDA or did something you shouldn't do, which is typical and expected, and even regular Google employees would go through that as well. I didn't really see much on values or the "don't be evil" or any of that. And one experience doesn't mean that's the way it is for everybody, but I didn't see that at all.
The other problem that Beth talks about is leaks. And she says a lot of activists, including Liz Fong-Jones, who quit Google after the walkout, don't like product leaks because then it gives management a reason not to tell employees what's happening. And so that's another problem, Programmers are getting more and more powerful. They tend to be difficult to manage anyway. I think it's really interesting that these massive companies, which really used to be able to set their, policies and then ignore the workers, because if you don't like it, we'll hire somebody else, can't because workers in some classes, some knowledge workers are hard to replace. So they have to listen to engineers who say,
sometimes I think that it's not just, you just have to invest more upfront. And, we saw this at Actually, at GigaOhm, we wanted to hire people who were senior. We never wanted to train anybody because that slowed us down.
Yep.
It wasn't. And I would say I have become very skeptical of the talent argument in the sense that someone is irreplaceable, even if they're a terrible human being. It's hard to replace them. It might cut into your margins perhaps, or slow your delivery. And those are real problems. But I think part of it is that companies aren't building a pipeline, and they kind of, and I think that's a really important thing that companies aren't doing. And yeah.
The other way of looking at this is, oh man, these entitled techies, they go to work for a company and they act as if they're in charge. That no one ever told them no when they were young, and now. And by the way, it's ruining. San Francisco, for instance, is no longer a place anybody wants to live. And there was an article in the New York Times on May 21st about how people who don't have college degrees are leaving the big cities, including New York, San Francisco, Santa Clara County, Silicon Valley, Los Angeles, because they can't afford to live there anymore. And in some ways, I think there's going to be a backlash against entitled engineers like the Google employees, because they're making a lot of money and they're changing the way cities work. And
you could argue that we're seeing a backlash against I don't want to call it gentrification. There was actually an article, possibly the New York Times, or no, I think it was the New Yorker, on the Airbnb-ification of cities.
Yeah, it's
but
terrible.
There is something to that. Like when I walk in downtown Austin, it's very different as a city than like a city like New York, which has practical services intermixed with crazy awesome restaurants or clubs or things like that. And I think there is merit to this idea that when you have an upper middle class or wealthy class, I don't know what exactly to call it, because it's more than just the 1%, but the very wealthy who are able to live in a place and then outsource all of their services, your city becomes basically a playground for those people.
Right.
And kind of boring.
That's kind of sad what's happened to San Francisco, although there are also estimated 7,500 homeless people in San Francisco, so much so that the city council has had to hire a poop patrol to patrol the streets and clean up human excrement. And as somebody who used to live in San Francisco and now goes back from time to time, there's some real problems downtown. It's really sad.
Yeah.
And there are another problem is Ubers. People are pointing to Ubers for traffic, part of the traffic problems of some of these major urban areas, New York and San Francisco, because there are so many ride shares on the road. Because apparently this upper middle class 2%ers, they don't like to drive. They like to take a nice black car service whenever possible.
Yeah. In terms of the leaks, I just want to be clear so that people understand. I assume most people know, but in case they don't, that I think it's Friday, it might be Thursday. No, it's Fridays. They have an open forum with Larry and Sergey, although I think only one of them has been showing up for the last while now. And it's basically an all hands meeting. And there's discussion about what the company is doing. There are no TVCs, no temps, no vendors, no contractors that are allowed to go to that. I know that for a fact. I mean, I was never allowed.
You can't go because even
No, and obviously it's held in the main building at the Googleplex, and then it's broadcast all over the world so people can tune in and whatnot. But it's broadcast in specific rooms, group rooms like auditoriums. So I could not enter. It would be impossible. My badge color would not allow me entry. So the leaks are coming from actual Google employees, just to be very clear there.
Yeah. And in fact, Google's clamping down on information that can be shared into internal information. They're really trying to stop these leaks. And I understand why, honestly. Let's see. I'm going to try to avoid any techno panic stories without Jeff to hear. How about more Chrome OS tablets? on the way.
I heard something about that. I'm glad you asked.
Flapjack.
Flapjack. Yeah. This has been a project that's been in the works for a while, but
Is this from Google?
Well, that particular picture right there is the Acer, which is the same as the Asus. I'm sorry, that's the Asus, which is the same as the Acer. There's really only one Chrome OS tablet out there other than the Pixel Slate right now, and that's been around since April. These are still in progress, so we don't know what they look like. We just know some of the capabilities, the sizes. It looks like 8-inch, which would actually be new because the current Slate by Asus and Acer, that's 10.1.
I missed my 7-inch. What was that? The Google Nexus. I loved that thing. That was just the right size. 8 would be fine.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get back to that because I actually don't think so, and I'll tell you why in a minute.
I feel like 8 would be the same size as the Nexus because the bezels will be smaller, so it'll be roughly the same form factor. I don't know.
All right.
We'll talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it now. So I have learned something, and I've kind of made a theorem on this, that the smaller a device screen is, you lose functionality equally from it having a desktop browser.
It's kind of a linear graph of usability over size. And I don't know how linear it is, but I'll agree with you. I mean, the Apple Watch is a perfect example. Usability has gone way down because that screen is so tiny, especially when you stand it next to a 30-inch Surface Studio. There's a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, a small Chrome OS tablet sounds great, and I actually had drinks with one of the folks that watches this show on Saturday, this past weekend, and we had a long talk about Chrome phones, perhaps, and Chrome tablets, smaller Chrome devices, and I just, after using the Acer, which came out back in April, granted, it's not a performance powerhouse, that's the first issue I had with it, but it was hard to use a desktop browser on a screen that was 10.1 inches, and now they're looking at 8 inches. And I'm like, no. And people want Chrome phones for some good reasons. Google can control the update cycle, for example, and so on. But no, it sounds great in theory, but if you've used a small tablet, it's pretty limited when it has a desktop browser.
Well, and to your point, I mean, the Nexus 7 was Android, not Chrome OS.
Exactly.
So your point would be that Chrome OS is aimed at smaller screens, so has more affordances for smaller screens. But Chrome OS really is a desktop operating system that needs a bigger screen.
That's my opinion. If we were going to see a Google do a Chrome phone, what I would like to see is something along the lines of the Samsung DeX, where it's an Android phone, right? It runs Android.
Chromebook, yeah.
And then it when you dock it, it then runs Chrome OS on your monitor.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that is a good idea.
The Samsung DeX isn't great because it's a Samsung OS that's weird. But the idea is great. I mean, this is the S10 Plus. This is a desktop-grade processor. It's got 1 terabyte of storage. It's got 12 gigs of RAM. I mean, that's a computer. All you need is a screen.
Haven't we been talking about this for a while? I mean, I feel like all the way back in 2008, we were talking about docking our phones. Granted, they did not have the processing power back then. But, I mean, there's reasons why we don't do this. And I'm not sure what those reasons are. That's
reason one is Android does not scale. So I like your point of view. I like your point of view, which is Chrome OS for the desktop, Android for the portable.
Okay.
Yeah, see DeX, Stacey, if you haven't seen DeX, it's basically an Android. Yeah, it's like an Android desktop, and Android is not a desktop operating system. Right. It's not meant for that. Yeah, you can use it that way, but it's not ideal. Chrome OS is definitely a desktop system, definitely not geared towards using as a mobile interface. So my thought was, hey, why not have the two in a sense and run one or the other? Like and the nice thing is, granted, with a Chrome OS on that phone or device, once it always has internet connectivity for starters. You also have access to all of your stuff in the cloud, all your Google stuff. But if you have local stuff in Android, today on a Chromebook, you can move and access Android information between the Android container and Chrome OS. So now you've got all your phone data right there as well. So to me, it's like once the right design comes in, the right processing power, because I'm not convinced that ARM Chromebooks are the way to go, just having used so many of them. But again, my needs are probably more than most people. Then maybe this could happen. But I don't want to see it. Chrome on a phone by itself. And because then Android's running in a container, there's a small performance hit. Just have it be like not a dual boot system, but almost like the Motorola Atrix. Remember that? The laptop? Why did that fail? You put your phone in the laptop and it would boot up to some obscure Linux UI and everybody's like, what is this? But people know Chrome. So if that phone booted up into Chrome OS on a monitor, that's familiar.
So
that's true. That might be good for kids too.
So just to be clear, you haven't seen any hardware called Flapjack. What you're looking at is the Chromium commits that contain this string, Flapjack, and additional information related, including some designations, C18 and C19.
Yep. So now you know that the panels that are there, and I've already looked up all the specs on those. You know it's going to have a digitizer, so it will have a pen.
Say a Wacom digitizer.
Wacom, yes. Yeah. Took me a few years to learn how to say that too.
Did I get it right?
You did well. In fact, we even know the processor. If you scroll down, I believe we can see that there's a MediaTek processor in there, 8183, if I recall correctly, with wireless charging support, that would be a first for a Chrome OS tablet. And
you say, now you don't know who the manufacturer is, but you say you think it might be Google?
I wondered, I thought so because it said there were references to Project Flapjack. And to me, that's like a typical Google thing, Project Crostini and Project this and Project that. But there are other Chromebooks that do have the word project in them that are not Google. So I'm going to go with a backup guess just for the heck of it. And this one's going to come out of left field, but I think Lenovo. They are one of the few folks that still make Android tablets, kind of low-end stuff, but they also make a high-end Lenovo Chromebook with a 4K display and so on. They're not in the Chrome OS tablet game yet. So I'm thinking, could be Lenovo, but that's just my gut. I've seen no evidence of that whatsoever.
So any time frame you think for this?
Based on the code and where they're at, I would be shocked if it would be before October. I'll say fourth quarter of this year. And I'm judging that based on what I see them working on. You can tell when they're almost done designing a product, when they're just fixing minor bugs. But when they're trying to get the LEDs to light up or the battery powered, So you're probably a good 4 to 6 months away minimum.
Yeah. Okay. Flapjack.
Look
now I want pancakes, you guys. It's terrible.
If you like Flapjack, you'll like our new operating system, Syrup. It's lickable. The geek benches you're seeing on this, are they fast or not? This is
not so much, and that's why I say that don't expect this to be like a Chrome phone kind of chip. They're roughly comparable to like a Celeron, maybe a Pentium, maybe. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that because there's a market.
Though. That's all you'd expect from a MediaTek.
No, MediaTek has been doing some really good silicon lately.
They have.
Okay.
Yeah, they have.
They're coming up in the world, man. I mean, like anybody, they started out low and now they're doing like bigger and better, and they'll get there.
Let me ask Mr. about Chromebooks, in fact. Do you think Chrome OS runs better under ARM or Intel?
Well, define better. I mean, faster? No. I'd say Intel.
Intel's, that's better, I guess.
I mean, you might say, well, the Android apps run better on the ARM chips because they're natively for ARM.
You have an advantage with Android apps if you're going to run Android apps.
I think it's a minimal advantage, but I could see that being a differentiation. But in terms of performance, I mean, let's put it this way: there's a Chromebook in the works called Cheza. I think we've talked about it before on the show. That's going to run on the Snapdragon 845, although maybe they'll switch to 855 at this point, and it'll have LTE. It'll be I presume a tablet based on what I've seen, but I am not sure that a mid to high end Chromebook user is going to be happy with an ARM processor like that. Chrome OS is built on Linux just as much of Android is, but it's not light like Android.
Right.
So I skew towards the Intel processors. Perfect example. And again, not everybody's a developer. I get that. But I want to use Android Studio in Linux on Crostini, which I can do now. Google says the recommended minimum hardware is a Core i5, and not the Core i5 that's in the Pixel Book or the Pixel Slate, because those are Y series processors that use less power. They want the U series. So I'm testing a U series Chromebook right now with Android Studio because it runs on the Slate, but the builds happen 3 times faster on the U series. So ARM for me is just not an option. For basic Chromebook use, absolutely, no problem. But depends on the type of user you are, what you need to do, quite honestly.
And based on what you said about screen size, what's the minimum Chromebook screen you would recommend? 13, 14, 15?
I'm kind of partial to the 12.5 of the Slate and above. Like I'm testing a 13.5 right now, and there are 14 and 15-inch displays up to 4K. Some people are happy with the 11.6, which is a pretty standard. That's like the smallest typical Chromebook display. I'm just happy that they're moving all towards 1080p displays, because the 720p displays on the older ones, and that's just kind of lame at this point, considering all the video people watch on these things and whatnot. So I think it's personal preference. For me, it's got to be at least 12.5 inches.
Now, okay. And then you may want even more with this new virtual desk feature.
Yes, I'm excited about this.
This is something I love in Linux, use it all the time. Use it on Mac OS, use it all the time. Use it on Windows. I have to learn different key commands for each one, but even Windows supports it, though in a little janky way. The idea is that you can go full screen with your apps, but you can have different workspaces. So, it's easy to slide to the next app, the next full screen app, or have multiple windows open in the same workspace, the multiple related windows. So is that coming to Chrome OS?
It is. If you scroll down, there's an actual video from the developers that I found because they're testing this internally. They're developing it and testing it. And if you click that, there's no sound, so that's fine. And you'll see he's actually demonstrating where they're at in the project.
Oh, I love
you can
this.
see he's moving to another desk, moving his apps. And the funny thing is, Chrome OS has a desktop, but you can't put anything on it. You can't use it. So this, to me, this is the first time we're actually getting some value out of having a space, a workspace, or a desktop.
The desktop's always just been like the wallpaper for the app.
Yeah, that's it. You can't pin anything there or do anything with it.
I like that. That'll be nice.
Yeah. It looks like they were targeting Chrome OS 76, which is due out in beginning of middle of June. But now I'm thinking 77 because the freeze date for code has passed for 76. So, but by the end of the summer, I think you'll see this, and I can't wait because I can group my desktops by, video consumption and social media and development, and just 3-finger tab in overview mode and switch. It's so much easier and so much faster.
Nice. Well, that's our Chromebook segment. Whenever we can get Kevin Tofel on, we're going to get the latest Chromebook news.
Thank you.
Update on Chromebooks.
About Chromebooks.com.
Yeah, and I have no take on Chromebooks. I'm like, my daughter may use one next year, and if that's the case, I will have questions for you.
Yeah, she almost.
No, they've got MacBooks actually right now.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, that's highfalutin.
That's pretty fancy.
Nice.
Pretty fancy.
They're 2013 MacBooks, so.
Oh, never mind.
Backing off.
Never mind.
Do you want to talk about Qualcomm?
Yeah, go ahead. I was, you sensed that I was kind of ambivalent about what's next. I don't see anything
do
that
I want to talk? But really
grabs me.
But Qualcomm, the FTC today ruled that Qualcomm's licensing practices are not 100% kosher.
Stock price went down 10%, the most volatile stock on the market.
It was a U.S. District Court judge. I'm sorry.
Okay.
A U.S. District Court judge in San Jose. They sided with the Federal Trade Commission. So the Federal Trade Commission had brought an antitrust lawsuit against Qualcomm 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, and they basically were like, Qualcomm appealed. This judge was like, no, I agree with the FTC, which is pretty rare, actually, that judges do this, especially in something this big. But basically, they said that Qualcomm violated antitrust law, charging high royalties for its patents to eliminate rivals. And she also said, yeah, you shouldn't charge royalties based on a percentage of the smartphones.
These were exactly Apple's complaints.
Yes.
That they weren't
Apple
getting
settled.
FRAND licensing, but Apple's out of it now.
Apple's out of it, possibly because they realized that Intel's modems weren't going to work as well as Qualcomm's.
No, it's pretty clear. Apple said if we're going to have a 5G phone, we're going to have to do a deal. Yeah.
So basically, the judge is saying Qualcomm has to negotiate and renegotiate its licensing agreements and stop threatening to cut off access to chips for customers who get upset. And it must license its patents to rival chip makers using FRAND.
Apple, if you could have just hung in there for a few more days.
Now, Qualcomm is going to say they're going to seek an appeal or seek a stay and appeal. So we'll see. This is like the Oracle, Android, Google thing that just in 5
Never
years
ends.
maybe this will be in front of the Supreme Court, but who knows?
Yeah. Did either of you read about Qualcomm? I thought, and I don't want to spread misinformation, so I'm going to ask if you saw this. I thought I saw something that Qualcomm was entitled to payments or royalties, even in certain cases, even if their chips were not used.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
That's absolutely
okay.
true.
That is absolutely true.
I don't remember where I saw that, but when I read it, I'm like,
well, because they have, in fact, that's really the problem is they have the key patents that make almost every smartphone work, regardless of the hardware.
So they're patent royalty payments then. Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
And,
But I mean, they
And
did
one
invent
of
those things. It's not like they.
Well, but they also participated in standards organizations. And when you participate in standard organizations, a lot of times you're going to.
Yeah, we want that CDMA standard to go forward. We like that standard. It's
but they have LTE related patents as well.
Right.
I mean, they knew that
They even
CDMA
have
was
5G
not going to.
patents.
Yes, they do. They do.
Did they make those inventions or did they acquire the patents? Do you know?
They've done both. It depends on the patents. I'm sure there's probably a mix. It's not like one 5G patent.
Some of our hosts, I won't name names, have accused Qualcomm of basically turning into a patent acquisition firm, or they have two businesses. They have the chip business, but the far more profitable business is the patent business.
Qualcomm licensing. Yeah, no, I would agree with them. I mean, remember back when we thought WiMAX was going to be a thing? Yeah. Qualcomm bought a bunch of companies, even though they were like, screw WiMAX, that's terrible.
But we're going to hedge our bets. Yeah.
But
not everybody thought WiMAX was going to be a thing.
You know who really liked WiMAX? A little company called Sprint. And you know what happened to that little company called Sprint? Whatever happened to that little company called Sprint? It really hurt them for years, and they're still laggardly. The FCC chairman, Ajit Pai, has now said, I like that merger deal. And you know what? I do too, if they do what they said they will do. T-Mobile, which has been trying to merge with Sprint despite some, kind of shade being thrown by other government agencies, has promised to deliver 5G coverage to up to 97% of the population within 3 years. That got Ajit Pai's attention. 99% of U.S. population coverage within 6 years of the merger's close. 90% of rural Americans. That's actually, to me, a really important number because...
Yeah, you have to do that to get any deal through in the... Like, when I go to Washington and talk to people about, how we're all, freaking out about net neutrality, you know what gets them all excited? Rural broadband access.
And I agree. Yep. I mean, you can do both.
Right.
You don't have to reward companies that are fighting net neutrality just because they're going to give us rural access. My real problem is we've seen this time and time again with big ISPs make promises like this and not get their merger, get their license, whatever, and not do it. So there are severe penalties if they don't do it.
There's always severe penalties, but you know what? Those are enforced also by the FCC, and the FCC is like, you're doing all right.
Billions of dollars in penalties.
Whose 5G equipment are they going to roll out?
Yeah, there's a question. Can you trust the Finns? They're awfully close to Russia.
They are.
Now, what does it mean that the DOJ?
Well, there's the other side. I didn't. That was. I have good news and I have bad news.
Wait, the chairman's a Swedish company. Sorry.
They're Swedish. Okay.
They're not Swedish?
They're not in Finland. Nokia's in Finland.
Correct.
Nokia's in Finland.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Go back.
Yeah, so the chairman was all, ooh, nice. I like it. Sexy. A guarantee that 90% of Americans will have mobile broadband access 100 megabits or more, 99% of 50 megabits or more. All and 2/3 of rural America will have access to high-speed mid-band 5G. All things we love. And then, whoops, the DOJ staff recommends a lawsuit to block the merger. One day later.
I would also say, if you're going to condition this deal, which it looks like they're trying to make happen, having mobile broadband access of 50 megabits per second, you cannot have that and have it be functional under the current data cap regime for mobile broadband.
Oh, that's important. Yeah.
So when we start talking about how this deal actually goes down, those are the sort of things you want to look at. It's fine. I mean, I am like, wireless with 5G in the right spectrum bands, you could recreate the quality of wired broadband for most, but you cannot charge them, $10 a gigabyte per month.
By the way, it's interesting that you say the right spectrum bands, because the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is warning.
We have to stop this right now. I just did so when I was in Anaheim, when I got my bed bugs, I was actually doing a presentation on 5G. And this is actually a story that I cited, or not that particular story, but it was an article in Nature from a couple weeks ago. When we talk about 5G, we're talking about 3 different possible things. And I just have to say this, the spectrum bands that they're talking about, we have allocated in the US, we have just done a 24 gigahertz block. But many of the operators are not going to be doing most of their deployment in those bands because they're really crap when it comes to propagation.
They're crap bands. So let me explain what's going on. Weather satellites, and I think this is really cool. It's a cool hack. Use this 24 gigahertz band to passively measure, what is it they measure in 24 gigahertz? Water vapor, that's right. So they're passive sounders on these satellites, and they use it to predict. And in fact, NOAA warns that if this 24 gigahertz band is given over to 5G, it would give them a 77% data loss on these water vapor. And they said our prediction abilities will go back to what we had back in 1980. It would, but Stacey, I would point out that that's not the only band, because there are other bands used for similar passive monitoring of other weather phenomena.
So yes, but those are at 36 and 37. Are you looking at the Nature story? Because they have a wonderful sharing spectrum chart.
I will get the Nature story up on my radar, so to speak.
So those bands have terrible spectral propagation. So basically they don't pass through walls, they don't pass through water, this is why they use it for that. So when it rains, these don't work. And we're working our way around it by using beamforming, by using MIMO, by using a lot of other technologies. This is actually where Facebook and Google both have projects. So Facebook's terahertz efforts are right in these bands. But when we talk about 5G from the carriers, they're talking about using these bands, they're buying these bands, but when you talk to them in their engineering departments, they're going to migrate for mobile use. They're going to migrate down to, whatever spectrum they own.
These microwave frequencies are too high. They don't propagate well, is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
So 23.8 gigahertz is used for water vapor. 36 to 37 is used for rain or snow. 50.2 to 50.4 is used for atmospheric temperature. And 86 to 92 gigahertz is used for clouds and ice. So there is concern because in every one of these cases, or at least adjacent bands, are considered for 5G internationally. However, your point is that no one's going to use them because they don't propagate.
Well, they're not going to use them. They're going to use them highly locally. So this could affect things. But the other aspect of this is we've actually done really well with learning how to guard against disruption in various bands. So because it's all digital, we're good at that. And I don't know if you guys remember White Space's broadband, but one of the challenges there was that we were going to cause interference. And now we've got these cool spectrum sharing databases that are awesome and work really well. So you could also deploy something like that in these upper band areas so you don't interfere with the weather. But yeah, we're going to have to adapt.
The thing that's frustrating is they've known about this since at least 2010.
Well, that's where I was going. Why did we auction these off, these bands, and not see this coming? That's what I don't understand.
Oh, that's what the FCC does. I mean, remember how we...
And they, I might add, do it quite well.
Yes.
I mean, White Space's broadband. We were like, oh, that's where we're using all of our wireless microphones. We can't use that for something else. And then they're like, yeah, we can. We'll work it out. And the industry worked it out. And then you saw it with...
but I will point out there was another one that I was vividly involved with.
Are we about to talk about
BPL, Broadcast Over Power Lines.
Oh.
And this was Michael, the FCC chairman, Michael Powell, was really pushing this. In fact, I remember I interviewed him in 2004, and he took us back to the labs. He said, look at this. We're able to use power lines, and what we do is we notch it, because hams and emergency radio folks were very worried, because one of the things that happens when you start pushing broadband over power lines, you generate huge amounts of interference at certain frequencies, which happen to be ham frequencies and, more importantly, emergency radio frequencies. That got killed.
Right, and so did the...
Michael Powell was of the opinion, oh, no, we can fix this. We'll notch it. Honest, it's not going to be a problem. And it got killed. Probably rightly so, right?
Right. Well, we had that with LTE, a satellite-based terrestrial and satellite-based LTE network called Light Squared. That died because it interfered with GPS. And, the FCC was like, well, we'll figure it out. And then everybody who uses GPS was like, nope. So basically, it depends on how much lobbying, you're willing to do and have the power to do. And I don't think NOAA has a lot of lobbying power, unfortunately.
No, but we do need weather forecasts. You know who needs those? Farmers, cities.
There are ways around. There are ways around this.
It's good that we're talking if it's not true. Meanwhile,
we can do. It is true.
Okay, I believe you because you're Stacey Higginbotham.
She would know.
Able to leap tall processors in a single bound.
I used to have an ITU spectrum chart on my wall.
She used to have an ITU spectrum chart on her wall.
Come on. I love spectrum. It's my favorite thing in the world.
I eat spectrum for breakfast.
But yes, it is going to cost money, and we will have to figure this out. It's good that they're bringing this up.
As our chat room, Emmett in our chat room says, Noah didn't need a weatherman. You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. So back to T-Mobile and Sprint. You got the chairman of the FCC all hot and bothered. He's excited. You got the DOJ ready to sue. And basically, people are saying it's a push, 50-50. We don't know what's going to happen. I'd like to see a merger. I use T-Mobile. I think Sprint is pretty much useless in our area. Be nice to see them merge, especially if they live up to that pledge to get 97% 5G coverage in 3 years. That would be awesome. You don't think they'll do it?
Well, even if they did do it, there's no guarantee on pricing. There's no guarantee on the quality of the network. There's a lot of things. It's one thing to say I'm building something out. It's another thing to say I'm building something else that's good. And coverage doesn't mean quality speeds. Coverage just means you can get a bar possibly there.
You remember when AT&T and Time Warner, the merger, and they told everybody that once that merger happens, we are going to hire thousands of new employees.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? They fired... They lost 27,500 jobs. So it just shows you can promise regulators whatever you want.
And you can actually lie to the FCC.
Can.
You cannot lie to the SEC.
Oh.
So I always find it interesting to look at what companies say in their 10Ks, their documents with the FCC. SEC, because the FCC, they can just do whatever they want.
AT&T promised 7,000 new jobs. Actually, that wasn't the merger. That was to get a tax break. I apologize.
Yeah.
They cut 20. That was for the big federal tax break that we did get.
And you remember they gave the $1,000 or $3,000 bonuses to people as part of the tax break?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was nice.
And then they fired 27,000.
Yeah.
You're both right, but I'll tell you what, and I think T-Mobile has done a tremendous job.
I'm a John Ledger lover, not a fighter.
Yeah, well, even beyond him, I like him as well. But I remember I had just started at Higginbotham, and either at CES or some other event, I had an interview with Neville Ray, who's the CTO. And he was trying to convince me up to yin yang about how they're going to expand, they're going to do this with all this spectrum, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, And I walked away, like, you're done, buddy. I just don't see it happen. I just don't, So they did, Ledger came in, they've made changes, they've cut prices, they've pushed the prices of competitors down.
Yeah, more than just their own prices. They've put the screws to Verizon and AT&T.
Absolutely.
And it's great.
Right. And disclosure, I switched from AT&T to T-Mobile about 3 years ago.
Me too.
And I'm a happy customer.
Happy. But mostly happy. It turns out when we moved to our new studio here in the beautiful East Side studio, there was 0 T-Mobile coverage. So we had to get a femto cell, which we have in the other room, connect to our connections.
Sure.
So
to your broadband, right?
Yeah.
But and again, this doesn't guarantee anything. Stacey, you're absolutely right. They could lie to the FTC, et cetera, and there's no guarantees. But if I had to pick one of the companies, one of the major U.S. carriers, to actually pull this off and make it a good thing for more people than not, it would be T-Mobile.
I agree. I think all carriers suck, but they suck the least. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair. Stacey, I don't want to say what her carrier is, but I know. So maybe that's,
Oh, no. I don't love my carrier. My carrier is just my carrier. I have no,
You'd be foolish to love your carrier because your carrier does not love you. They just love the color of your money.
And my carrier loves charging me lots of money.
I have Verizon on the Galaxy S10, and it's ridiculously expensive. But on the other hand, the connectivity is excellent.
It's very good. But Stacey, you're moving to T-Mobile's backyard there.
Yes, it is something I am going to evaluate when I finish doing that. Although I'm switching from Spectrum to Comcast, so we'll see.
Oh, we'd like to welcome you to the Comcast family, Stacey.
Comcast has already sent me an email offering to set me up with all kinds of things.
Let me just say, it's Comtastic.
Well, we didn't sign up under my.
You are?
In in Seattle?
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
Because
I'll email Dane. I'll be like, Dane.
Email Dane.
I'm kind of nutty because
I'm a happy Sonic customer.
Sonic is the best by far.
Sonic is awesome.
You could get Sonic fiber.
I don't even have fiber, and it's still.
I want to move somewhere else in Petaluma just to get the fiber. We have fiber here. We have 10 gigabits symmetric. So sometimes I'll just come to work and.
Yeah, their Fusion non-fiber solution.
Yeah, that's an ADSL2 solution.
That works just fine for me.
You get 2 lines.
You get 2 lines, and it does the job.
It's the best you can get with ADSL.
Yeah.
My options are CenturyLink, Xfinity, Viasat, or the Kitsap PUD.
Do you?
But Seattle is so techie. There might be something.
Is AT&T an option? Because if AT&T is an option, then you can get Sonic.
Oh, really?
AT&T is not an option because they use AT&T's ADSL. If you can't get AT&T, then you're.
It's
SOL.
not. I meant CenturyLink.
Look at
so
this.
I cannot get Sonic. Look at you.
Residential gigabit broadband service is available in more than 170,000 households in Seattle from CenturyLink
They are
and
deploying
Wave.
fiber.
Yeah.
So I will
do that.
Just
do that. Don't ignore me. Do that.
And I got to
Comcast
say,
doesn't have fiber in my area
do
yet.
not get that X1 piece of crap that Comcast pretends is a DVR. Just bite the bullet and get a TiVo.
Well, I don't have cable, so I don't care.
Oh, you don't care?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I haven't had cable in over a decade.
You don't care. Yeah.
I just plug in my Roku.
Yeah. Really, that's all.
I'm curious. I'm curious because I have Verizon Fios here at the house, and I've had it for a couple of years. What does Sonic provide, and what's the monthly cost? Just curious.
$60 a month.
No, for it's cheaper for fiber.
It's cheaper
believe it
for
or not.
fiber, but nobody can get fiber. It's for their 2 lines of ADSL merged into one. It's like $60 a month, I want to say.
And what's the upload and download on it?
I get between 10 and 20.
So this is.
But you're also supporting Dane Jasper and his company.
The greatest independent
I get around,
internet service provider
between 10 and 20 up,
ever.
and between 5 and 10 down.
There's no caps. He's very pro net neutrality.
He's fought the good fight. Yeah, Dane's an old friend. I've known him for years and years, and yeah, he is the best. I'm thrilled that you know him. And
I've served him drinks on my rooftop deck.
That's more than I can say.
Great.
Caps are the key, Stacey, because if you're going to have fast internet,
no caps on Sonic, zero.
So no caps on.
Get this. This is their fiber if you can get it, $40 a month.
Wow.
For I think it's 50 gigabit fiber. I can't remember. It's not symmetric. No data caps, 15 email accounts, gigabyte of storage, personal web hosting, fax line service, and that includes home phone as well as internet. But did I mention that? I mean, that is amazing.
50 megabits, not gigabits, right?
Yeah, did I say gig? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
I was like, wow.
I have gigabit fiber.
Yeah, no.
I thought it was gigabit fiber.
Well, there you go. They have.
It is gigabit.
Yeah,
it's just
gigabit
gigabit
fiber.
down.
It's gigabit down.
But it's I don't remember what it is up. It's it's enough up. It's 30 up, whatever.
Probably. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pay about 100.
And you can't get symmetric. I mean, we have symmetric here, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So 40 is a great price for gigabit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Including phone.
I don't think there's a lot of municipal providers who can't offer that.
When I interviewed him, I said, "What, are you going to lose your shirt, dude?" He said, "No, we figured it out. When we put it in, if 1 in 5 homeowners subscribes, if we can get that 20% penetration, it is a profitable business."
Wow.
It is. And
I've gotten one of my neighbors to sign up.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
On the rest.
Yeah.
It's smart.
Yeah.
Very smart.
Kevin, I'm in a Giga Ohm. I was on the broadband beat, and Dane was like right there. I did so many interviews with him talking about profitability and
we had a
infrastructure.
triangulation with him, and I guess really we should say he's still a sponsor because he sponsors us with his 10 gigabit symmetric fiber. Shh, don't tell him.
We're running over his wires.
Right now we're running over his wires.
No cap.
No cap. I love it. We want to do the change log. Let me do an ad, and then there's a couple more things. I want to address this works with Nest thing because we were talking about this last week.
Oh yeah,
and
there was something else
changed.
I was excited about.
Yeah, I think Google has.
I have that in the change log. You want to just start the change log?
Okay, let's change the change log.
The Google change log.
Concern after Google I/O about what was going to happen when the Works with Nest program was deprecated August 31st, replaced with Works with Google Assistant. The issue, of course, and Stacey, I think you calmed everybody down a little bit, but the issue was, is this going to break my home network? And they say your existing devices and integrations will continue working with your Nest account. You won't have new features that will be available with a Google account. And we're going to stop accepting new Works with Nest connections on August 31st. But it sounds like they're really going to commit to making sure all the integrations you're using will be replicated in the new setup.
Yes, and they're also saying if you don't want to switch it over, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
At least for a while.
For now.
I don't know if that would be
You won't
forever.
get any cool new stuff, but your home won't break, which is nice because, people do not want to keep setting up as someone who's about to have. We got a call into the show. This guy lost his whole hub settings, and he said it took him 7 hours to replicate everything.
Yeah. But this is
that.
This is what Google should have done the first time. They should not have done it the way they did and walked it back. They should have done this the first time.
Well, I think the good news, look, people make mistakes. The good news is Google heard people and very quickly acted to fix it.
I'm now just realizing we didn't talk about this on our show, Kevin, and that was kind of stupid of us.
It was in the newsletter. I put
was.
100 words in the newsletter. It's fine. It's all good.
I have to say, I woke up with a strange man in my bed this morning, and I think it was, I blame Google. Did this happen to you? Has this happened to you? I said, hey, Google, what time is it? And some guy said, it's 7:30. I said, who are you? He said, I'm John Legend. Has your Google Assistant started talking in John Legend's voice?
Mine is packed, so no.
Mine has not. It is not
but
packed,
I did have the offer. It actually offered me. I had to turn it on, though. I had to opt into John Legend.
I don't
maybe Lisa
think I turned it on. Or maybe Lisa. She does love John Legend. So here is John Legend's voice on your Google Assistant.
Hi. Here are the voices you can pick for your Google. Hi, John Legend here. I lent my voice to your Google Assistant so you can hear me do things like answer your questions, brief you on the weather, and tell jokes while the regular assistant voice handles the rest. Let's have some fun.
Okay, John.
Okay.
Not that I don't like John Legend, but it would be nice to have other celebrity voices.
I think, and this is something, I'm looking this up because I believe what they did is they made a big deal of having John Legend come on, and they actually recreated his voice from like a limited subset of his comments. Okay, yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right. And they used, what is that term they used? They use his phrasing and his inflections to then, and of course the sound of his voice to then inform the assistant. This is the one I chose. I think I chose green.
Here are the voices you can pick for your Google Assistant. If you like this voice and want me to keep using it, just stop here.
You know what? But there are a bunch of other choices.
Here are the voices you can pick for your Google
That's
Assistant.
Sydney Harbor
Like
Blue.
And want me to keep using it.
British Racing Green, purple, pink. But I really like, I'm just going to say I like the green. And I figured out why, actually, after I picked it. Because it sounds just like the voice on the old Apple Dynabook video. Do you remember seeing that?
No.
No.
This was, God, it was like, I want to say like the 90s, early 90s. It was their vision of what the future was going to be like. I think it was at a TED conference back when they were in Monterey. I can't find the video. But it was a really cool vision. There was a guy in a bow tie. It was on a laptop, but it was called a Dynabook. And he'd say, you have 5 appointments, and your mother is calling and stuff. And it was that voice. I swear to God, it was that voice. So I feel like Google, it's an Easter egg, I would think, that Google maybe tried to duplicate that old voice for people like for old timers like me. Here it is. This was 1987. The Knowledge Navigator from Apple. And it forever seemed like this is never going to happen. But we're kind of getting there. This is all, forget all this froofy stuff.
Masterpiece Theater.
It is. Welcome. There it is. There's the Dynabook with a completely superfluous metal weird handle. This is our human protagonist, who is apparently a professor, entering his office. He opens the book and speaks.
You have 3 messages. Your graduate research team in Guatemala, just checking in.
Doesn't that sound like the same voice?
Robert Jordan, a second semester junior, requesting a second extension on his term paper. And your mother reminding you about your father.
Surprise birthday party next Sunday.
Today you have a faculty lunch at 12 o'clock. You need to take...
This is very much like the Google Assistant, isn't it?
Yes.
You have a lecture at 4:15 on deforestation.
We didn't know it was going to take 30 years.
Let me see the lecture notes from last semester.
This is exactly the kind of thing. I could see this demo on Google I/O's stage this year.
No, that's not enough. I need to review.
And did you notice it was a foldable screen?
Yep, it is. It's a foldable screen with a lot of weird space age
Your friend Jill Gilbert
bezels.
published an article about deforestation in the Amazon and its effects on rainfall in the sub-Sahara. It also covers drought's effect.
By the way, somebody pointed out the camera on this thing is the size of an actual digital camera. It's not like we can't figure out how to get that lens any smaller. I don't think it's physically possible.
Okay. Let's see. There's an article about 5 years ago, Dr. Flemson or something.
This we haven't got.
Disagreed with the direction of Jill's research.
John Fleming of Uppsala University. He published in
Although
the Journal
Google's
of
pretty
Earth
good at
Science
correcting
of
my
July 20
typos.
of 2006.
Yes.
Yes, that's it.
And you can actually
He
type
was
something like that
challenging
into
Jill's
Google. You
projection
just
of
can't
the
say it.
You can't say it yet, but soon.
To the atmosphere through.
Anyway, I just I heard that voice. Anyway, John Legend. I guess that's not new, but you can pick it along with a bunch of different colors.
I told you about the colors once. Do you remember?
I remember that.
Colors?
No,
Okay.
why did they do the colors?
Yeah.
Because they do it because they didn't want it to be racist or
personified.
sexist.
Yes.
Right. So
That's right.
I thought that was nice.
Have you heard about the Translatotron?
I read about it in our newsletter.
It's okay. Well, good, Stacey. Explain what the hell an end-to-end speech-to-speech translation module is.
Wrote that one.
It seems
Actually,
like
it's better to demonstrate it.
okay. Well, we have some demonstrations. Actually, that was what my plan was. So, which one? Maybe I'll go a little farther down. Yeah. So here's the Spanish input. This is a real human speaker.
Larry me preguntó cómo me sentía y creo que es cuando empecé a llorar.
So the first thing they do is translate it to English, the old-fashioned way.
Larry asked me how I felt, and I think that is when I started to cry.
Larry asked me how I felt, and that's when I started to cry. Then they did this is the baseline cascade translation.
I wondered how I felt, and I think that's when I started to cry.
But wait, we can do better. What if we did a Translatotron translation?
Larry asked me how I felt, and then I think that's when I started crying.
But better yet, let's add the original speaker's voice, and this is the cadence matching that they do now with John Legend.
Larry asked you how I felt, and I think it's when I started to cry.
Here's the Spanish.
Larry me preguntó cómo me sentía y creo que es cuando empecé a llorar.
Here's the translator.
Larry asked you how I felt, and I think it's when I started to cry.
He sounds kind of like he's got
he
a
sounds
stuffed
like
up.
he's
Yeah,
They're getting there though. I mean, I it's not a bad attempt at it.
They're getting there if you're like, well, that guy's a guy, and the translation voice is a guy. That doesn't sound like him at all.
Well, here, let's try another one. This is the original Spanish source.
Por lo tanto, mirar alrededor del país y lo que ves.
And here is the source voice after translation.
So, look around the country and what you see.
Long pause.
So, look around the country and what you see.
Okay, this doesn't sound that good, actually. I take it all back. Forget the Translatotron.
Work in progress. It's a
work. It's coming along.
It's a beta.
Yeah, the idea is, I guess, I don't know. I feel like that could be the beginning of more hoaxes and misunderstandings. But that's just
get ready. That's just the way the world is. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
I played the fake Joe Rogan last week, didn't I?
I don't know. I hate Joe Rogan. Do not play him.
That's your pick for the end of the show.
Oh, okay. Oh, I did on Twit. Is that when I did it?
You did it on Twit.
Okay. But now I know Stacey hates it, so I'll get a different pick. Here's some good news for those of you who spent $1,500 on Google Glass 1. Google Glass 2 is out, and it's only, what was it, $9.99? It's a lot.
33% less.
It's a lot cheaper. Google Enterprise Edition 2, faster, more helpful, and only half as geeky looking.
Well, Kevin spent the $1,500. Yeah.
So did I, but I didn't even get the glasses. Jason Howell has them.
I got custom lenses.
Oh, you got the nice. So you can wear them instead of your.
I can't see. I have progressive bifocals. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So what do you still wear them?
All the time. I'm a chick magnet with those things.
Hi. Do you mind if I record this conversation?
Hi.
I see you're on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that would not go over well. Yeah. Wait, let me buy you a drink. Your favorite is on Facebook? Oh, I see, a martini. Okay.
What is this? You like your rum college.
No, I don't wear them.
Okay. Well, anyway, they're back. Faster and more helpful.
For enterprise. I mean, this is like AR for like the HoloLens, for example. This is not consumery.
Now, apparently, I missed the boat because I got John Legend on my Google Home Hub. But the Nest Hub, when it comes out, it's going to have character alarms.
I wonder if you pay for that. Like, I wonder if that's like a licensing deal.
Well, if you got the neat Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles.
Somebody's paying.
The what?
TMNT.
If you got Leonardo in your alarm, also you could choose from Lego and Hatchimals. So it sounds like it's really aimed at kids. Here, let's watch.
Cowabunga!
That would wake me up.
That is annoying.
Hey Google, stop.
Yeah, please.
Hey, Google, never play this again.
Ninja must never forget to. Forgot what the lesson was.
So it's for an 8-year-old. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I mean, for kids, I could see it.
We middle-aged ladies have John Legend. They've got Ninja Mutant Turtles.
And Legos.
Wait, Legos don't talk. How are they an alarm?
Oh, you've clearly not seen the Lego movie.
Lego movie. Okay, yes, I have actually.
Everything is awesome, Stacey.
Everything is awesome. Okay, I'm not going to sing the rest of the song.
I wish you
would.
I could. I think you could. Then after that, I want you to do the Let It Go from Frozen, okay?
Oh, excellent. Yes.
Yes, I think you know that too.
I do. All of the words.
All the words.
I get to work with her every day.
Kevin never sings along. It's terrible.
So I think Retcon in our chat room has it right on. They need adult ones like John Belushi from Animal House. Food fight! That'd be a great way to wake up. A little Caddyshack. Yeah, so I got that going for me. The Hangover. Bridesmaids. Yeah. I know what scene from Bridesmaids I'd like wake me up. And Office Space. That would be good. That'd be good.
Good choices.
Excellent choices.
I would like a little Tiffany Haddish from Girls Trip.
It's good enough. I know what Kevin wants. Hey, Kevin, it's time to wake up. Wake up, man.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Peace and love. Wake up, man. We've got a record to record. That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Hello, Kevin Tofel.
Hello.
This is Paul McCartney saying, wake up, buddy.
Come on, mate.
Come on, mate. Wake up. Want a prelly? Wide color photos are coming to Android. Wide color is not exactly HDR. It's a color profile, not sRGB. It's something better like P3, Adobe RGB. So sRGB is kind of the lingua franca, the lowest common denominator. A lot of cameras, everything does sRGB. But you can see the difference if you look at sRGB versus P3, which is used, I think it's a lot used in the motion picture and television industry. And that's a much wider gamut. Or here, for instance, display P3.
I like the umbrellas.
Huh?
Yeah.
I like the umbrella photos.
Yeah, and you see
nice.
how rich those colors are compared to
very
sRGB.
saturated.
Yeah.
Of course, you need a display that can show them on your phone to really.
A lot of phones now can do P3. That seems to be the
the
standard. So you can see. Obviously, your camera. You'd have to have some P3 screen to test it, and they have a little wide color gamut test. So for those of you watching at home, if you see a little Android guy, you're P3. If you don't see anything. Which is what I see right now, just a red blob, right? Or do you see an Android?
I see the Android guy.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I see the Android. Well, I see the Android guy on your screen.
Yeah.
Well, I see a red blob with the Android guy.
Your Chromebook must be.
What's happening?
Wide gamut. Yeah.
It is.
What should you do to prepare? Gather as much water as you can. I don't know. I don't know anything more about this. I'm going to go to the next story. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy your veal. Google Duo has increased the group call capacity. Now, remember, they're playing catch-up to Apple, which allows you to have 32 people in your FaceTime. Google now has 8. I think that's enough. 8 is enough. That sounds familiar.
8 is enough.
I don't even know 8 people.
I know.
No, you know what? I will say this has kind of frustrated me a little bit about Duo, but if I have a source, which I have lots of them, I now see when they're on Duo. So I get these like CEO of major company has joined Duo. I'm like, that they don't really want to be. They don't want the reporter getting notified.
Let me call them.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
Now here's a problem though. Duo 2. Do we rename it Ocho?
No.
Please.
Octo?
Yes, please. Ocho.
Ocho. Los Ocho.
It should be Octo, technically.
Octo, because Duo is Latin. It'd be Octo. But Ocho, I like a little better.
My son would totally.
El Ocho. El Ocho.
I don't even know if I have 8 people on Duo. Let's see how many Duo contacts I have now.
No, but when that new Nest Hub comes, that supports Duo. I guess your Home Hub does too, but you don't have a camera, so it's stupid. But with the one with the camera, or your Lenovo or your JBL, right? You can use Duo.
I use it on the Lenovo.
I'm thinking when the Nest comes out, I'm sending one to my mom because I think right now we FaceTime, but I think it'd be a much easier way for her to communicate.
Yeah, I love communicating via the Echo Show. Sorry.
Do you?
It's really handy when I'm out of town to connect with
the
my
kids.
family.
Love it. Yeah, it's like mom's really there.
If I had a Google Home Hub, my son would use it constantly.
He'd call you all the time.
He wouldn't call me. He would just call his friends.
Well, that's who El Ocho is for, because that's what happens. They get home from school, they get their group together, and they're all on the Ocho.
Yep.
They are. Well, yeah, my daughter hangs out with her friends on Hangouts.
Yeah.
But that's going away.
That's good to know that that's still around. That's good.
Oh, she's sad about that information.
Well, she can use El Ocho.
I don't think. And you know what? I tried to actually call my Google Home using Duo, but I couldn't call my home. Like I can call my Echo Show.
You can't call a phone.
Right.
No, I couldn't call my Home Hub.
Oh.
What I wanted to do, because it's sitting there and I'm on my phone, and I couldn't find on Duo my Home Hub.
You can't specify the device. That's the thing.
Right.
You call a person, not a device.
Right, but
and even
my person is me, and I was on the phone trying to call me on my home, if that makes sense.
No, that doesn't actually. Why would you call yourself?
Well, that's the point. Like on Duo, if I wanted to call
if you wanted to talk to your kids.
If I wanted to talk to my kid at home on the Google Home device, I didn't have a way to call it.
I gotcha. Yeah, maybe through voice match. I don't know, because I'm the only one who uses all these Google Home things in the house, and my son's the only other one on the other end of the line. So and he uses his phone. I don't know. If you don't have a camera on your smart display, you can still use Duo. It's an audio only call, by the way.
Yes.
So there's this kid, Michael Saman. He was a teenager, 14 years old, I think. When he created a bunch of apps, got Mark Zuckerberg's attention. Mark brought him onto the stage at F8 and hired him as the teenage intern at Facebook. Teenager in residence. Oh, man. He created...
Is it a white guy?
Of course he's... Well, I don't know. I don't know. What
I'm just asking.
There he is. Yeah, he's a white guy. What did you want? He's a clean-cut white guy.
I don't care. I want anyone else.
Anybody but white guys. Okay, Kevin, let's leave. So he created a whole bunch of apps, including one called Life Stage. This was a Facebook app. It turned bios into video profiles. It was an iOS app for people 21 and under. Facebook launched it 3 years ago, then killed it. Saman left and went to Google, where he is now, I don't know what, an adult in residence. And he has created, by the way, his parents are from Peru and Bolivia, raised him in Miami. He taught himself to code with online tutorials at the age of 13. His first app was a $1 app with tips from the Club Penguin game. He earned him thousands of dollars, which kept his family afloat during the recession. So it's actually a nice story. He might be white looking, but he comes from the streets.
Okay, well, that's good. I'm like coming from a disadvantaged background, always nice, given different perspectives.
The recession, their house was foreclosed on. He kept him afloat. His big break came when he overheard his sister on the phone sending photos to a friend and tried to make her guess what word they represented. That inspired him to build 4 Snaps, a photo charades app. It was number 1 on the word games chart with a few million users. Then, Facebook found out about him and replaced him with a bot. He left Facebook, went to Google, and his new game is charades. Once again, he's back to his roots with emoji shot. Emoji charades with friends. So instead of sending pictures, you send emojis, and then by doing so, you can then play the game. And what am I trying to say? It's like a rebus, I guess. That's what we used to call it when I was a kid.
Clever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice story. Just telling you. It's an iOS game, though, unfortunately, so it really shouldn't be on this changelog at all. I apologize.
Are we still on the changelog?
He's at Google, though.
So he's at Google, but he's making it for iOS.
He's working for Google.
There's a link.
Yeah. There's the link. Google Assistant now works with the Wyze Cam. We all love the WYZE Wyze Cams. And some guy named Kevin C. Tofel tweeted this video of Norm.
Show me the driveway.
Show me the driveway. And here it is.
My
and this is
exciting driveway.
This is your Wyze Cam.
It is my Wyze Cam.
Awesome.
Yep.
And that's his driveway.
That's my driveway. That's my vault.
It's a lovely neighborhood. So that's the only drawback. They don't have an outdoor camera yet, so you have to put it inside through the window.
Yeah, I put it through the window. I had a Nest Cam there, but I didn't want to pay a subscription fee, so I bought a $20 Wyze Cam and used an SD card, and now it works with Google Assistant. I will say, in the time I've tried it since then, it's hit or miss on the connectivity. There's a lot of latency sometimes, and other times it's not.
I've had that problems with Nest cameras on Google as well. I think it's just an issue with Wi-Fi connected cameras mostly. But I have to say, now that I have John Legend in my home and my bed, I am going to replace my Ring doorbell with a Hello. I'm going to replace my Amazon stuff with Google Home Hub. I think I've decided to. I'm not going to kick Amazon out because I still buy stuff, I guess, that way. So I might keep that. But I think, for instance, on the Sonos, you have to choose, right? I think I'm choosing the Assistant. I really think Google Assistant is the one.
I did the same already, and Stacey and I, it's like we cover everything with IoT, so it's kind of hard to go and kick everything out. But literally, I just have like one test Amazon device because I'm all Google.
Okay. So
and he does that because he doesn't want to do the reviews that I ask him to do. It's like, I don't have that device anymore.
So I also am a big Audible listener, and there's no Audible on, it's only on Echo. It's not on Assistant. So that might be another issue. On the other hand, Sonos has Audible support. So maybe that'll solve that. Because they do have Sonoses everywhere.
Yep.
Google Calendar and Keep. I know you love the dark mode. There you go. Google Calendar and Keep.
Dark mode all the things.
Dark mode all the things. If you go to Android Q, dark mode is in Android Q now, and I guess they're going to just make all the Google apps in dark mode, I guess.
Yeah.
I do like that. The brightness hurts. It burns. It burns the eyes. If I wanted bright things, I'd go outside. And that's the Google changelog. Yes, Ms. Higginbotham, you spoke.
I was going to ask for our things. I am.
You need to go?
I'm not doing as well as I thought I was doing. So I'm like sitting here.
Let me do a quick ad and then we'll do the things. Can you stand it?
I can. I just was like, oh.
Because he adds the thing you know and love. It's Grammarly. Who doesn't love Grammarly? Use it. It's funny because for a long time, I was a grammar snob. I said, my grammar's perfect. I also was a spelling snob. My spelling's perfect. And then I started using Grammarly. I realized, A, my grammar is not perfect, nor any more than my spelling is. B, Grammarly is more than just spelling and grammar. Grammarly is all about communicating more effectively. So, for instance, knowing the reading level of what I've written is very useful. And what I found is a lot of the people I know who write for a living, like you and Stacey, love Grammarly. Paul Thurrott loves Grammarly. You can use it on almost everywhere. It's available as a plugin for Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge. It's got an iOS keyboard, Android, Windows, Macintosh. Yes, there's Grammarly free that does spelling and basic grammar, but you're going to want Grammarly Premium because you get spelling, grammar, plus advanced punctuation, structure. That's a hard thing to do right. It does it right. Style within context. So, for instance, if you're writing a business proposal, the style would be different than an academic essay, than a blog post or a social media post, and so it understands that. Vocabulary suggestions, always welcome. Conciseness, readability for different occasions. And occasionally I'll write something, an email that's maybe a little too brusque, and Grammarly will actually say, you want to soften that up and make that a little nicer? And you can ignore it, but it's like having a good friend over your shoulder with some suggestions. Accomplish your goals with help from Grammarly. Stop making email typos, close more deals at work with your emails, polish your resume to get that new job. Grammarly can help you with it all. And no more ungrammatical tweets, please. They're offensive to the eye and spirit. Go to GRAMMARLY.com/TWiG. Get 20% off your Grammarly Premium account if you do that right now. Grammarly.com/TWiG. We appreciate your using that URL because that tells them you saw it on TWiG. And we definitely appreciate Grammarly for making my writing better and supporting our show. Pick of the week, Stacey Higginbotham.
Yes. Okay.
Oh,
I promised I would show you this. Two things. One, Wyze, who we just talked about today, actually it was last night. They sent out an email to all their users and they said, hey, we've got cheap light bulbs.
Oh.
So you can have tunable white lights for 4-pack for $30.
What?
Which is crazy cheap.
Oh, nobody's that cheap. That's amazing.
Well, there are other things that are that cheap.
I
think, Kevin, your Cree light bulbs are that cheap, but they are cheap.
The Crees are they're a little more expensive.
Yeah, and
okay.
Now white is cheap because white, but
They're
honestly,
white,
a smart.
But tunable though.
Tunable's pretty good, yeah.
Oh,
Tunable's not.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
these are nice.
Light, yeah.
So, in honor of this announcement, because you can pre-order them.
Yeah.
Right now, you have to go through the app as part of their beta shopping program. I love that they call it beta shopping. I'm like, dude. Anyway, but I decided I'd show you guys the sensors, which I couldn't show you the other day because I was under embargo.
Oh.
So here's my WyzeSense box. I want you to notice how freaking tiny this is. This is my Wyze camera.
Yes.
This has 3 sensors and a bridge.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
This is the motion sensor. I mean, like, seriously, you guys, these are like an inch. That's ridiculous. My other motion sensors are like this. And
do you have the bridge there? Do you have the bridge?
I do. Here's the bridge. So this right here. Oh, my
God. It's just a little plug-in.
Yep. There it is.
Nice.
Ta-da! So I wanted to share that with you. This package, if you have the Wyze camera, well, you need to have the Wyze camera. That's either $20 or $30 if you want the pan cam. This package right here with the 2 open close and 1 motion sensor, that is $19.99. Super cheap. It does run on its own proprietary radio. So, and that the package also contains the bridge. So what you're going to have is a sub-gigahertz radio that doesn't talk to anything else, but does a bang-up job for very little money talking to its own little ecosystem. So that's the Wyze gear.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
See, they're smart because everything's very inexpensive, but there's so many things now you can buy that I feel like I'm going to spend hundreds of dollars on this site.
Well, and they're profitable. They are 4 former Amazonians started this. Amazon people.
Because they're up in Seattle. That makes sense, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And their idea was to become profit or to build very cheap stuff and sell a heck of a lot of it is their whole business model.
But it wasn't just growth for growth's sake. They did want to be a profitable enterprise. So
yes,
that's
they
really
are
cool.
not. They're not venture backed.
Nice.
So
really,
there you go.
They're doing this all on their own.
They were for a while. I don't know if they've raised money since.
That's
but
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm shopping right now. I'm going to buy bulbs. Better hurry. 32% sold already.
Oh, it was 16% last night. So
how many can I buy?
Going quick.
I can buy 3. 4 packs. That's 12.
Yeah, that's 12 bulbs.
At
That's a lot
that price,
of bulbs.
I'm buying. Yeah, 12 bulbs. So I mean, I don't have to ever buy bulbs again, right?
Oh, you know what my thing should have been?
What?
But I don't have it physically.
What?
I'll have it physically next week. The Lutron Aurora. Next week, I'll show it to you.
Next
You're going to
week
be so impressed.
or the week after. And maybe I won't get the pan this time. I'll just get a couple of the regulars. Because I think I don't use the pan that much. What do you think?
I don't have the pan, so I just go with the straight Wyze cam.
Yeah, I had a couple of the pans. Okay. I bought 3 because they were so cheap. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kevin Tofel from All About... If you want to go, Stacey, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you, dear. No.
I know.
all about Stacey. It's all about Stacey. StaceyOnIoT.com. She's gone. StaceyOnIoT.com. And the podcast you do with Kevin Tofel.
Yeah.
IoT podcast. Must listen. Subscribe to the newsletter, too. Thank you, Stace.
Yeah.
And you, sir, Kevin Tofel, what do you have to show for yourself?
So I get this question all the time. What Chromebook should I buy? And the first thing I do is say, well, what are you going to do? How much do you want to spend? Are you like a low-end Chromebook user or high-end? And no matter what, I almost always get the universal answer of, well, I don't want to cheap out, but I don't want to spend too much. I don't want to use basic stuff, but I don't need Linux. So it's always like, you just need a mid-range Chromebook and you don't want to spend $600. Okay. This is the first time I can remember that both the HP Chromebook X360 14, which is a mouthful, and the Dell Inspiron Chromebook 14 are the exact same price because they're both discounted $100 to $130 at Best Buy this week. So what I did was I put a little chart together showing you what the very few differences are so you can decide if you've got $450, which of these two you want. There aren't too many differences. If you want more memory, which I always recommend, you can't go wrong with adding more memory, you go with the X360. But if you want more storage and you want a pen, you go with the Dell. Same processor, same graphics chip, same displays, backlit keyboards, everything else is mostly the same. Maybe get a little better battery life out of the HP. It's a little lighter, little smaller, but for $450, you can get yourself a nice Chromebook right now, your choice. I have links to Best Buy. They are not affiliate links, so I'm not making any money off this. It's not promotional. This is just, if you want mid-range, you cannot go wrong with either one. Pick which column is better for you.
Great choice. I agree. 100%. Now that Stacey's gone, let's do a little Rogan. Do you hate Joe Rogan yourself?
I'm ambivalent.
I am too. Yeah. My son loves him. Of course, he's a very famous podcaster, MMA guy, commentator, comic. And a company called Dessa, which does AI voices, built a model to replicate Joe's voice to show AI techniques. And they've got a little game at fakejoerogan.com. Probably they did that because they hoped Joe would mention it on his podcast, is my guess. So I'm going to play a sample. Pick a sample from 1 to 8 and see if you can play the game here. 1 to 8, Kevin.
Oh, how about 6?
You are much less likely to injure yourself if you do it correctly.
I do not think that is Joe Rogan.
You think that's faux Rogan?
I think it's Joe
Rogan.
do.
Nope, it's real Joe. Carson wanted to weigh in. Yep. Isn't that amazing? All right. Really? No, actually, that's not amazing yet because it was the real Joe. Pick another number.
3.
3.
Yeah, it's goofy. The world's goofy. There's a lot of goofy shit out there, but just go with it.
That's real.
That's got to be real, right?
I don't think so.
You say faux Rogan. You would be correct, my friend. Fooled both me and Karsten.
Okay,
that was faux. Pick another number.
Karsten can pick.
Karsten pick.
4.
4.
Healthy local ingredients, farm fresh ingredients.
That's real. It's got to be real.
I agree. That's real.
I think it's fake.
It is real. It's real. Fooled Karsten. But, he played along. Anyway, you could play along too. Fake Joe Rogan. They randomized these samples. But I think, let's look at the one,
it's impressive.
The 2 that were fake. No, that was real. The fake one we heard.
Yeah, it's goofy. The world's goofy. There's a lot of goofy shit out there, but just go with it.
That sounds. That doesn't sound like an
fake.
AI. It's a good fake.
It's a good fake. Yeah.
Better than Translatotron, I thought.
For now.
But he's speaking English. Yeah, impressive. And that's
we'll get him as the Google Assistant voice.
I do not want Joe Rogan waking me up. That just sounds painful. Do you want to play your video, Karsten?
Yes, I have a thing this week. I have a video that a viewer sent in.
Yes.
Of one of our
he tried to do this in the studio and couldn't really do it.
One of our favorite fans.
One of our favorite fans will sing along with the TWiG theme.
His arrest, can you defend him as a journalist? Is it free speech? The bad news for Facebook just keeps on coming, and how
he's looking out the window, saying, "What? I hate this show.
He's got range.
I hate it. Don't play it. Trust." Rufus's pet claims that he loves the show, but doesn't sound like it, does it? I'm glad, because Rufus was in studio and we couldn't quite get the howling right, but clearly that's to prove it.
That was impressive.
Very impressive. Thank you, Kevin. Yep. Great to have you. About Chromebooks.com, everybody.
It's all about Chromebooks. I don't know what else to say.
It's pretty much says it all.
Says it all.
And you can hear him with Stacey on the IoT podcast every week. You do it you kind of like Wednesday mornings, so that way.
We do Wednesday mornings and then do edits and everything, and it goes live on Thursdays.
You can hear it right after you hear this.
Yep.
Thank you, my friend. Have a great day.
My pleasure. Peace and love.
Peace and love. All right. We'll see you later. Bye-bye. Our show is... Cheers. Have another Prelly. Our show is produced every Wednesday, 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern. That would be 20:30 UTC. If you want to watch live, you can, or listen live at our website. We've got streams for you at twit.tv/live. You can also download episodes on demand, so you don't have to listen live at twit.tv/TWiG. And you can, even if you search in any podcast application, search for This Week in Google or TWiG or Twit. If you search for Twit, you'll find the network and all of our shows. You can subscribe to the ones you want to get automatically delivered to your phone. We appreciate when you do that. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you next time on TWiG.